So I want to talk about what I think is happening in Siu Nim Tao and Wing Chun. And this is partially from things that I see with my Sifus, things that I've watched from other masters, grandmasters, and research that I've done with GPT, and some crossovers with Tai Chi as well, especially the Chen Zhanghua videos where he shows internal stretching. When we started Siu Nim Tao in the very beginning of our Wing Chun journey, we're obviously just doing shapes, right? So we watch our Sifus do this. We kind of try to copy it. We have our elbow in the wrong place. It's here. And then, after some time, we figure out at least a couple of basics, right? That, like, for example, when this travels, the elbow has to stay low. It doesn't come up. Our shoulders don't come up. It takes a long time to get those basics. And in the very beginning, for example, for me, when I was doing my Tansa in the very beginning, I would tense this. This would be really on fire, like this would be activated, highly activated, like a piece of rock. And I actually thought that part of the Tansa training was training these strong muscles of the forearm. And maybe it is in the beginning. I don't know. Maybe this is the magic of Wing Chun, is that you change the perception, or the training changes as you change, right? So in the beginning, we're learning to remove tension from our body. And so as a result, we start, everything's tense. The shoulders are up here. I'm exaggerating, but a lot of people look like this doing their Tansa, right? Everything's up here. This is really activated. The biceps really activated. Everything's activated, right? And so after some time, people start to finally relax. Now for me, it actually took a long time. This is my second year of Wing Chun, and I just started doing Siu Nim Tao extremely slowly. Like, it's actually, it's told to us to do it slowly, right? Actually, if you read some of Lung Ting's teachings, he says 15 minutes on the first section. Just this section, the Tan Saos, spend 15 minutes doing the 3 Tan Saos, the 3 Fuks. Do that both sides, right? So if you actually start doing that, first of all, you become extremely aware of all the tension in your body. So as you're doing this, you can actually see, okay, this is coming up. Relax it here. This is activating. Relax that. My bicep is active. Why is it active? Relax that. So you really are forced to, if you do it extremely slowly, you're forced to, right there, see my shoulder came up, I felt it, I come down. I keep going. I come down more. I feel, okay, there's still tension back here somewhere. I release it. The elbow comes down lower because I've released the tension. My lats activate. My back of my body activates. And you feel that through doing about 15 minutes of just this standing meditation. You're also going to feel your bottom. You're going to feel your legs. Okay, a lot of people are squeezing their knees together. That's not correct, right? It's actually opening the qua, which if you study Tai Chi, is the same concept. We're opening these hip joints. So we're rotating outward here. We're creating compression inward here because of this outward compression, and the knees are coming over our toes. They're not collapsing inwards. We're not squeezing with our thighs. We're actually just rotating this out. It takes a long time to figure out how to do that. And after a while, instead of having it all look like this, it's all much more relaxed. And it feels like you have strength, but you're not actively doing it. But what I started realizing after doing this all, I got to the point where I could do Siu Nim Tao and I had almost no tension. Now, I'm not going to say I have zero. Still have a lot of shoulder-based tension. But I feel like my biceps relax, my triceps relax, the forearm is empty, everything's empty. So everything is empty, and you have a relaxed motion that is driven from this elbow. And when you do all that properly, you start feeling new things which are in your back. So you start to feel that when you're relaxed here, your shoulder is no longer the one supporting all this. It's actually being supported by your lats, by your big back muscles, which I think is the whole point, that we're training our big back muscles to work with our body instead of just keeping everything here in the arms. So as we relax this, as we stand straight, we're opening up all our joints. That's another thing that they talk a lot about in different martial arts, especially in Tai Chi. They say, open your joints. What does that mean? So I watched a video by this Israeli-Russian Sifu, which I finally understood what he was talking about. He said, look, take your finger. It has a natural state, right? This is the natural state of my finger. It's not straight out. It's not completely bent. It has a natural state. So when you do this, it creates a tiny bit of tension in the finger. It's like an elastic tension. You just open it a tiny bit, okay? And then you imagine in this joint that it's growing. It's opening space. Okay, and then you do that with your whole hand. Okay, you feel like it has a little bit of elastic force. It springs back. I think this is the idea. If you actually, and I did a lot of research with GPT about this as well, because in many of the Chinese teachings, this concept is called qi, letting the qi flow, letting the force flow through your body, and it's all very mystical. And I think what it comes down to, and there are a few people that talk about it in this way, is that it's actually about activating all your joints in a way so they're all coordinated. So what do I mean by that? Once you get to this relaxation phase where everything's actually fully relaxed, you can start to feel what it means to open your joint, which is to say, do this. Okay, so I'm going to do this in my finger, a little bit activated in my finger. Now my wrist. How do I open my wrist? Feel this, hold this, slight activation right there. This is the part where it's actually easiest to see it, inside of the elbow. If you just move your elbow around, that's one thing. That's not activating the joint. Now watch this. Keep the elbow fixed, open, compress, open, compress. So instead of this, instead of moving my elbow up and down, which is really just my shoulder moving, I'm opening and closing the elbow. Now I can do it like this. This is wrong. This does not stretch that. Okay, so it's actually, Cheng Zhanghua talks about this in the Tai Chi method. He says, fix this point and fix this point, stretch this open. So, again from here, these 2 points are fixed, open. Whereas this is wrong, and this is wrong. So we're not moving our shoulder joint, we're not moving this up and down, we're moving only these 2 things, forward and back, and we're opening this joint. What does that look like? Well, it actually looks like this tansao. Look at the tansao. This is fixed, this is fixed, this is opening. So we're coming from here. This comes up to here, now it's at the shoulder level. This is fixed, this is fixed, this is opening. If you do the tansao this way, now I believe you can only get here after you do the relaxation piece. So it will take many months, maybe a year, to get to the point of that kind of empty relaxation. But once you get there, the next thing I think, and again GPT confirms this, is that there's actually phases of body conditioning. And I think it's across all martial arts. I think it's across Tai Chi, I think it's in Wing Chun for sure. It's just not often talked about, and perhaps it's because they don't want to tell you this on day one. If they tell you this on day one, you're going to totally get the wrong idea and you're not going to be able to do it. So on day one, it's copying the shapes. On day 2, or on year 2, it's emptying your body of tension. And then after that, it's creating this stretch. And what does that stretch do? It actually creates this elasticity, where your hand will automatically bounce back. Right there, it has a recoil. You can feel it in your finger. Open the finger, and then relax it. Open the whole hand, relax it. And so when you relax your hand, it springs back. Now you do it with everything. Hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder. Right there. How do you relax the shoulder? You keep it back. If you let it come forward, you can't create that stretch. So you need to open. Stretch here, stretch here, stretch here, stretch here. Everything's stretched. Stretch in the qua. And that's what they mean by opening your joints, I believe. So you have this. That's opening your joints, right? So now when they say relax, relax, what do they mean by that? Well, in day 1, they literally mean, turn off all the muscles, right? Relax, because you're this. You can't fight like this. You can't have martial arts like this because you're slowing yourself down. So the first thing is relax. But then what do they mean by relax? After you've achieved this state, it's actually this. It's opening the joints, getting all the joints open, so that you actually can transmit energy through this. Now the next part I don't understand. I understand that this, if you open this up, it will recoil. So I get how this is useful in a pulling motion, because if you have everything coordinated, and of course this means coordinating every single joint all the way down to your feet, which is very difficult and I'm not there yet. I can create the stretch and I can have it recoil. And I can feel that it all happens in my hands, it happens in my quad, which is this hip area, and it somewhat happens in my knee and barely happens in my ankle. I think I'm still working on connecting those 2 pieces. But once you have that open, and you can recoil. Open, recoil. And again, I really recommend watching videos by Cheng Zhanghua and Michael Calandra, who are Tai Chi practitioners. And Michael Calandra practices a lot of different arts. He's great. They talk about keeping the center line fixed, having a rod through your body. So as you're doing all this stuff, opening the qua, collapsing, opening the qua, closing, you're doing it all around this point. So I'm not moving my body around, anything like that. Here. So I believe that this is what actually, at the end of Siu Nim Tao, as you get more and more proficient in it and you're doing it slower and slower, what you're actually training is the elastic stretch and then the automatic recoil. Elastic stretch, automatic recoil. But you're not just doing it here, you're actually connecting everything. So as your tansao stretches out, there's a subtle stretching and opening in the quad. There's subtle and stretching and opening in your knees, in your ankles, everything's together. And then you're drawing in, but you're not physically moving it back, you're letting it recoil back. So you're opening and you're recoiling. Opening, recoiling. Creating the opening. I'm exaggerating it because it should not be this big. Creating the opening, recoil. Same thing here, for example. This is just me moving my hand. This Pakistan. Now watch this. Instead of this, it's open here. Open, creating a stretch. Create stretch, recoil. Create the stretch, recoil. Create the stretch, recoil. So when you do these motions, this is creating a stretch and then recoil. It's all the way back here. So the recoil actually drives you. Out, recoil. Out, yun, recoil. So you're creating an elastic stretch and recoil, which I think what it does is it trains the connection to the lats, the psoas, the bottom, and that's what gives you the powerful jutsaos and all the laps and all that kind of stuff that we do in Wing Chun, and of course in Tai Chi there's very similar ideas. You're creating that powerful connection from the very tip of your fingers down to your back. What I don't necessarily understand is whether this is also involved in the push, because I think this is what we're training here. All of these motions, it's stretch open and then release, right? Release the energy. Stretch open, release. Up, down, release. So this is the whole time I'm actually activated in the stretch. So I think what we're learning is instead of doing this all with muscle like this, with a tense shoulder, tense biceps, slowing ourselves down, we're relaxing this, we're creating the stretch, and then we're stretching and release this way, or stretch and recoil. Stretch and this way, or stretch and recoil. So I think that's what, at the end of the day, if you actually practice Siu Nim Tao correctly, which is to say slowly, and let your body adjust to this, let your body release the tension in all the front of the body muscles, the biceps, all that kind of stuff, and activate the back, then focus on this stretching, which I feel now in my lat. As I stretch out, it's actually my back that's activating. Stretch and recoil. Stretch and release that way. That's what creates the internal power, what they call, internal power, chi, whatever you want to call it. And I think when you are in contact with somebody else, especially in Wing Chun, we're told to give forward energy, right? We're told to have activity in our hands, so that when we contact somebody, if they press on us, we are absorbing, but we're ready to recoil as soon as they let go. So all of this, what we're doing in Siu Nim Tao, is training those recoils. We're creating this system that recoils forward or recoils back, depending on what's happening, right? If I push this way, then we have bump, and we recoil. So all of these things that we're doing, all these motions, are designed, you don't just do them empty, but you create stretch, create stretch, create stretch, so that it recoils automatically. You create the stretch, and then it recoils. And I believe that that's what trains this system, which is, the fascia, the fascial web, or whatever you want to call it, that connects all our muscles, so that when we recoil, we're not just recoiling in our hand. This is just the first phase. The first phase is being able to recoil this way. But then it's recoil in our hand, in our elbow, in our shoulder, down to the hip, down to the knee, down to the leg, and it all works together. So we absorb into that and we release from that. Of course, that takes a long time to achieve, but hopefully this is helpful to people trying to figure out what this is all for. At least this is my interpretation. I've seen many other similar interpretations, but I have not seen anybody really explain it in a way that makes sense to me. So I'm trying to explain it to myself as I'm learning it and as my body is changing too. Over the last 2 years, I've definitely seen a lot of changes. My shoulders are coming down. The way that I feel the Wing Chun system is very much becoming second nature in that in that springiness. So the springiness. Now, when you get into applications, you touch hands with somebody, it all goes out the window, of course, because you're not able to focus, right? So as a beginner, which I think I still am very much a beginner, as I get into a more pressure situation, the body tenses up, and all of this is lost. You lose the elasticity. You either become very stiff, or alternatively, you try to you kind of revert to basic stuff like evading, ducking, and as you do that, you break this entire tensioned web that you've been building, right? So if you're here if you're not trained to, you probably can be here and still have the web on, but most people cannot do it. That's why I think in Wing Chun in the very beginning, we're always taught keep straight, keep upright. In much later levels, you learn how to not be straight and upright, and you can be in other positions. But in the beginning, you have to be here because that's the only way you can actually keep this whole system active and functioning. As soon as I move, I start to lose it. So moving while having that system on is extremely difficult. And that's why I believe we're taught the way that we're taught, and why Wing Chun actually takes a really long time to be effective. You're not going to go to your first class of Wing Chun and then all of a sudden be able to do a street fight or a combat fight or combat sports, for sure. But what can I say is that after doing Wing Chun for about 2 years, I go into a sparring situation with somebody not trained in Wing Chun and more of a boxing or whatever, and the Wing Chun skills do translate. They activate in real time and they do things that are not natural. They're not, they're not moves that I've practiced. They're not specific punches or whatever. They're just my body reacts properly because I have the structure. I have this tension. At least 5% of the time I have the tension and it works. So that's just my take on it. I have no idea if it's correct, but I'll keep revisiting this over the years as I get deeper on it.